I don't know what possibly could go wrong with whatever we got going on here. This thing was a whole lot easier to push back when it didn't have an engine. Welcome back to the Lost Cause Ranch. So I kind of forgot to film an intro for today's video, so you guys get a sneak peek of next video, and that is a couple Land Rovers getting ready to drive across the country, but more on this next week. Today we got to do a little bit more sorting of Joe's life. As you guys know, I created a little bit of a situation for myself, buying or attempting to buy another building for us to move into, more space, and in preparation of that I bought more stuff. Unfortunately, that didn't come through, so today we're doing a little bit more sorting on that, trying to get my life in order, and then after today we get to go drive across country, and then after that we can just go work. So let's get into, I guess, getting rid of more stuff. And I guess before we get into the video, we also started off the week a little bit different than normal. We went out to look at a piece of property, and as we were driving by the McDonald's in Dubuque, Iowa, we spotted a Defender with European plates. Not too often that happens, so we stopped and chatted, and it was actually a couple from England on a little tour across the country in their last year Defender Classic, so that was kind of cool catching up with those guys. We were in farm country. We don't get to see that too often. So being we're in a bit of a holding pattern because it seems like I brought all the English weather over with my collection of Land Rovers, i.e. it's doing nothing but raining today. We're gonna start taking all the random little bits out of the interior on the 944 Turbo. We're just after a bunch of the little random stuff like switches and whatnot, and maybe our little steering column stuff, but I'm not exactly sure how this comes apart. Never had that apart. Being we did such a good job organizing the shop last week, or at least making it look like a usable shop, I figured we continue on this week because we're Land Rover hoarders, not Porsche hoarders. We're very space limited at the moment. I think we need to utilize that space. My main goal is to get all the drivetrain and underneath bits out of the 944 today, but the weather is kind of putting a hamper on that. So we are currently sitting underneath the LR4 truck, and we really need to have the 944 up on the hoist to get that stuff out. We just can't pull the LR4 truck out until it's done downpouring. So we're just about ready to drop the transmission out, and then it'll be torque tube and then engine. So these are a rear transaxle car, so the transmission's actually back here. They got essentially a solid mounted drive shaft in between the engine up front and the transmission in the back, and that gives it a better weight distribution by throwing the weight of the transmission back there. But just to see where we're sitting financially on this, I went and looked, and we currently have $2,043 sold off this so far. And if you remember, I had this listed for $8,000. I would have took $6,000 for it as a whole. I'm really kind of curious if we're gonna come out ahead on this or not. It's gonna be kind of close because I figure I'll have 40 to 50 hours into tearing it down, picturing, and shipping out stuff. So we do really have to factor time on this because time is not free. So for this to be worthwhile, if we were trying to get $6,000 out of it before, if we call my time worth $50 an hour right now, which is light if you factor shop rate around here should be like 125 to 150. I normally charge between 100 and 125 depending on what I'm doing. But I'll give myself a break. I'm gonna call it $50 because this is pretty low risk. I'm not dealing with customer cars. I'm not doing anything like that. It's just tearing apart an engine, and that'll cover our low overhead and put a little in my pocket. That puts us at $200 to $2,500 in additional labor. So we would have to be $800 to $8,500 to bust for selling this as a whole. And realistically, we have to hit like the $10,000 mark for this to be worth doing. So we got a little over $2,000 sold already. I have another $2,000 listed, and $1,500 of that should sell. So that's $3,500, but we haven't touched the real big ticket items yet. We have the turbo engine, the turbo transmission that's coming out. And then we have this stuff sitting here that I need to get up and pictured. The big ticket in here is gonna be that turbo manifold that we built along with the larger turbo. We have upgraded injectors, upgraded fuel management system. There should be a couple $1,000s there. The brakes are worth a few $100 being it has the turbo 4 pistons front and rear. So I think that stuff should net us close to the $8,000 mark, but the big ticket item that should push us over the edge are our wheels. These are legit CCW lightweights, in 17 by 9.5 and a very wide 17 by 11 in the back with a 315 tire. It's kind of steamrollers for this. I think those will be what push us over $10,000, which I think will make this a worthwhile venture. It's sad to see something get tore apart, but it's gonna help out a lot of other ones on the road. It just is what it is when you modify stuff. It takes a specific person to want what you built, and this one's been sitting around for a minute, so I'm not exactly upset at the fact that it didn't sell right away. You know, I forgot about, I had a set of the upgraded sport front struts and coilovers for this that I sold before tearing this apart, that I was gonna include with the car. And those were like $700. And then we also have the roll bars sitting out there, and that thing should sell for about 500 bucks. So that's another $1,200 on this. So I really think we'll be in pretty good shape once everything sells through. Don't be too jealous of my transmission jack. You know, with how many engines I've ended up dropping out around here, I'm really wishing I would have kept the cart that Ted and I built for the old dealership. We had a nice one on casters that was set up. It was mainly for Audi, BMW stuff to drop out the bottom. We could adapt it for all the random stuff we did around here. I just didn't think I was gonna do as many as we've done. But either way, we're just about ready to drop out here. So we got the engine out on the stand, we got all the suspension stuff blown apart. Now we have the fun job of trying to get this onto the trailer. That's kind of an easier said than done thing. It'd be really nice if we could just back the trailer underneath it, set it down, but we can't. We got fenders on the trailer. If it was like a deck over, we could block it up high enough and do something like that, but it's not. So creativity. And that creativity is gonna start with putting the rear wheels back on. So we left the rear suspension on. It's really not worth me grabbing because it's not in great shape. Step one. Step two, get the trailer underneath the rear wheels, and we're gonna lower it down to where those are touching. And step three is gonna be take the weight off the front end with the engine hoist. I don't know what possibly could go wrong with whatever we got going on here. Seems like a foolproof plan to me. So it's currently off the weight of the hoist. We can spin the pad. We're gonna slide the rear bumper off so we don't damage that, which there's a good chance stuff's gonna get messed up. Yuki's smartly staying well far away from that situation. Good self-preservation skills she has. And we're just gonna hook the winch up now to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. I'm honestly not exactly sure what's gonna happen once we take the entire weight off it. Better than expected. All right, we're gonna leave the hoist somewhat underneath it, just in case this gets too crazy, it'll catch it. At least that's my thoughts. I feel like I should hook the winch up to the other side. So we need to actually pull it closer to where the camera's at right now. And if we pull from the opposite side, that should do it. There we go. I just hope we get it on far enough before it falls. Well, so far it hasn't gone completely out of whack. This really is more of a two-person operation. I mean, it's actually an operation that you shouldn't be doing But if you had another person, you could kind of steer the other end while winching, or if the trailer winch had a remote on it, we'd potentially be able to do something as well. But it's kind of working. The good news is we're kind of past the danger zone. If it falls, it's just going to fall onto the trailer. It's far enough on at this point. Now we just need to steer it back over. Was there any doubt that that would work? Now there's still a few things we're gonna grab off this before it goes away, but at least we can get it out of the shop and continue on. Because once we have the mess of parts that we just took off a little more organized, we're gonna start putting a little more together on the lightweight. Before we pull this out and go park it, we got a little rearranging to do. I'm trying to clean up everything around here, including the front area. We're gonna organize stuff, and not only because we're eventually gonna have to move and I just wanna kinda make everything set up to go, we also have some special visitors coming. So by the time this video goes up, it'll probably already have happened, like 2 hours before this gets launched onto YouTube. But the Rover Ball 2 is coming through town, or at least close enough that when we're making our Green Bay to Des Moines leg, we're gonna stop here in eastern Iowa at the car wash, I guess, so people can check out my junk. I don't know if it's that appealing of a stop, but when in Rome. So we'll get the lightweight tub moved around front, and then I want to pack a couple cars in the back here, just trying to get ready for when we launch out of this place. We're gonna pull the camper around back to this. Actually, it'll probably wait until after we move, but this should be next up on the chopping block after the LR4 truck and the lightweight. I've been looking for a set of wheels. See, we got them 8-lug axles to put underneath it. I got the 37-inch tires sitting in the office. I just need a set of wheels, and I think I found some. So we'll try and go down and grab those before the Rover Ball, hopefully. So we'll just land that next to the container for the time being. We'll deal with that after we get back from our little Rover Ball adventure. So the rear tub is up and ready to slide the lightweight underneath. I want to get this back on there because the tub is really the only thing left to go back on that takes some additional lifting power, like a hoist. So if we get that on, that should be the last time this has to come out of this little spot until we have it ready to run. We should be able to assemble the rest of it, fabricate the rest of it in its little spot back there. This thing was a whole lot easier to push back when it didn't have an engine or a bulkhead on it. So being as we have both of them close enough together now, we'll do our little wiring that we were talking about before. We're gonna use some Deutsch connectors on this so we don't have to snip this every time we go to pull the pull the tub off. So these are pretty slick. They end up being weather tight, so they work well. I happen to just like the way they look, like the way they work. They're my favorite connector to use on harnesses. So we just got a little pin. So we got a male and a female side, and then we got a special little crimping tool. Pretty straightforward. We just load that in, crimp that guy solid, and they just push through our little insulator on the back side, and then they will clip in to the connector in there. Then there is just a little lock. Apparently you need to pay attention because I wasn't. Put the wrong pins in the wrong connector. Easy enough. We'll just de-pin it and try again. Hey, would you look at that? Now we can put the lock in. So that just secures everything together. We'll do the other side, but just look at how quick it is to make up a connector, even when you do it incorrectly and you have to swap it. Still fast. So now the only thing to pay attention to is the wire location. Thankfully, this painless harness, sometimes painful, but painless harness is nice and color coded, so we can just kind of set the other side connector on and match them up. So there, much easier for future service, and we can now drop this guy back on. So when you're doing stuff, always try and leave it better than you found it, including wiring. We're gonna have to do a little adjustment once we get close, because obviously it's not square. And now we can push it back over into its little home, which will work out just in time because I want to get the LR4 truck in before once again it starts raining. It's looking grayer than my mood out there. Worn out, but it's back there and it's coming along. We were close, but we didn't quite beat the rain. So we're obviously going to go on the Rover ball again this year, especially since it's coming through our neck of the woods. Last year we had a lot of fun taking the Freelander and pulled over on the side of the road. That looks like a tad bit more than AC condensation, which in true Freelander fashion was a risky proposition, and it only made it about 1,500 miles before we hopped into an NAS Defender 90 and did the rest of the trip. Well, this year we are a little bit behind in life, so we're just gonna take old reliable, the Range Rover. So we're getting it cleaned up. This thing is a mess. We bought it a little less than a year ago. We've put 20,000 miles on it. More than half of those miles have been towing a Land Rover behind it. So we just need to do a little cleanup before we take it on a little bit of the Rover ball. My goal was to take the LR4 truck, but obviously that didn't work out. With the whole building fiasco, that ate up about a month of my time. So we lost a month this year, which is about what we need to make this roadworthy and whatnot. So we'll debut that a different day. So we'll be boring and just take the L405, which, if you remember after the Rover ball last year, I said one of these would be probably the best thing to take on a cross-country trip if you're picking out a Land Rovers. So it'll be a little more quiet, a little more comfortable, but the good news is we are gonna see a familiar face. And in some other news, my Freelander's doing fine. If you've been paying attention to Lucky 8, the old loaner Defender 90 that we ended up finishing Rover ball out with last year is back on this one. We tidied up the shop quite a bit in the last day or so, and I'm excited because it gave us some room to work, and this guy, along with the LR4 truck, are gonna get a ton of work come next week. It's been a rough month and a half, 2 months with the whole building ordeal and leading up to the Rover ball. We're heading on the Rover ball now. We're probably gonna cut it a little bit short. Some other things popped up. I'm not gonna be able to do the entire trip, which bums me out, but it's gonna be nice to have a little windshield time with a bunch of good buddies. And a couple days of driving. That'll let me clear the head a little bit. I feel like I'm whiny. It's not really been that bad. It's just been a lot, and it'd be nice to do a little reset. And then once we get back from that, we are just gonna be able to work. There's not gonna be all this chaos in the background that is distracting. Like I said earlier, I lost about a month of time dealing with the other building. We still have to find another place, but whatever. It's the way things go. I enjoy chaos, apparently. But man, just look at how different the place looks. Everything tidied up, everything moved, made a bunch of room. I don't know how many Rovers are gonna be on the first leg of the Rover ball, but we made room in the parking lot that we can have as many as we need. We also tidied up the office a little bit. If you caught the last video, this was a disaster. But with everyone stopping by, I'm just gonna try and make my life appear to be less of a disaster than it is. But don't worry, this was the type of cleanup job like when you were a kid and your mom told you to clean your bedroom and you just kind of stuffed everything into a closet, made it look clean. Don't walk behind the building. That's my closet I stuffed everything into. 4944. But with that being said, I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate you subscribing. We have the Range Rover all loaded up, ready to head up to Green Bay, meet up with everyone for Rover Ball 2, and we will recap a little bit of that next week on A Day in the Life of a Land Rover Hoarder. If you're a Land Rover hoarder, what better thing to show than a bunch of Land Rovers? Also, on the way back from Rover Ball, we're probably stopping to look at another one, speaking of hoarding. But the good news is, after that, mind is clear. Everything is cleared out. Nothing on the horizon besides working on the lightweight and the LR4 truck. National Rally's coming up. One of those has got to go there.